Hey guys, my name is Mannequin and welcome back to EDM Pro Tips. Okay, today I said I was going to talk about software, so I'm going to do that. Okay, so there are a couple of things I can cover with software, but I think I'm going to cover three main things. First is DAW, second is plugins, third is samples. So, first thing, DAW. You probably already know what this is if you've been through this many episodes of EDM Pro Tips, but a DAW is a digital audio workstation, which is basically the house of everything that you do when it comes to audio production. It's where you mix everything, you produce everything. It's the audio software that everything is housed in. So so this is like the most important thing when it comes to your gear, because as a electronic music artist, you need to have a digital audio workstation that kind of suits your workflow. Now I'm gonna say right now there are tons of options. There's tons of expensive options, a few cheap options, and pretty much all of them will work just as well as the next one. The only thing that changes per each thing is pretty much the workflow, with the one exception of actually two exceptions. The free exception being Audacity, and the paid exception being Pro Tools. And just those ones are not really suited for EDM. I know Audacity is pretty much only recording, and Pro Tools is a lot centered around like recording, and there are some VSTs for it, and not VSTs, that's a problem. There are some software instruments for it, but it's few and far between. So I'm going to list up a couple good options by way of digital audio workstations, and you'll find that a lot of the stuff on my channel, while I do it in Logic, it's actually transferable to most of these DAWs, except for you'll kind of have to learn how to do it in your particular DAW. So, so the top ones off the top of my head are probably Logic Pro, FL Studio, and Ableton Live. Not in that order, in no particular order. So, those are the top three ones. Now there are a couple of other ones. There's Reason, Cubase, and I think might be one more that Reaper is actually pretty popular for cheap ones. So they pretty much all have really good sound. They pretty much all have the same feature set. It's just a matter of, some have miscellaneous small features that others don't have, as well as that some of them have a completely different workflow from others. You'll kind of notice, like, the two that I have used regularly are FL Studio and Logic. So the way, from my experience, what you kind of have for FL Studio is everything's loop centric. So you design a loop that's kind of composed of one or more instruments, and then you paint out the loops in your playlist. So you kind of like you have a particular loop with, no matter what it has in it, you can actually put it all in one track in your playlist. So in your playlist, you can have one track that essentially has your entire song in it. While it's not suggested to do that, it's actually entirely possible. Whereas Logic, on the other hand, each track is its own instrument, and you put MIDI in each respective area. Now, if you've never seen or used FL Studio, that doesn't particularly make sense how you can do that. But essentially, you have this rack that has all your instruments along with the notes they'll be playing per loop, and you could switch loops that you're viewing in the rack, and then in the playlist, you paint out which loops you want where, just kind of for organization's sake. So it's for FL Studio, it's very loop based. So if you do hip hop or rap, this is going to be your best friend ever. It'll make things really easy when you're painting things in, and also help you organize things very easily. Logic, on the other hand, if you want to do styles that are a lot more centric on changing things, like I don't know, trance, progressive house, stuff like that, you'll definitely want to go for Logic instead, because it's a lot more flexible. Like when you have a note progression and then you want the last note of the progression to change after 16 bars, you could loop it, and then for the last bar, so like you have a 4-bar loop, and you just kind of have it loop a couple times, and the last one you copy another one and then just change the last couple of notes. On the other hand, in FL Studio, you need to actually create a whole new loop, and then you need to change the last couple of notes, and then you can move that into your playlist. So it's not as easy when you're changing things up. But if you are doing a lot of consistent patterns, FL Studio is going to be your best friend. Now, obviously, it's kind of not good for me to compare these two because FL Studio right now is Windows only and Logic Pro is Mac only, so you might actually be subject to whatever operating system you have and have to choose one or the other. That's where Ableton Live comes in. Ableton Live is used not only for producing but also for live performances, and this one is it's leaning more towards Logic in the workflow. That said, it kind of does focus on, once you have synthesizers in there, it kind of focuses on being able to like freeze them down into audio tracks, which is kind of nice because it reduces CPU usage. You can like flatten stacks and kind of render them out like that. But otherwise, the workflow is a lot closer to Logic, and this one is actually Mac and Windows. So if you use Mac and Windows on a regular basis, you might want to just get Ableton Live because it'll save you the effort of having to switch between DAWs every single time you want to do something in a different DAW. So personally, I use both Logic and FL Studio. I don't use FL Studio anywhere near as much. I'm hoping to pick it up a little bit more so I can do some tutorials for those guys, because I know some of you guys have been asking. Actually, it's not too many of you guys, but I know some people have come on the channel and been like, these are great. Is it possible you could do like an introductory series on FL Studio? I have one video on FL Studio, and it was kind of like very quickly done, and it's kind of like a lot packed into one episode. And more than anything, it's kind of like a comparison between FL Studio and Logic and what the differences are. So it's kind of helpful if you start in Logic and you want to move to FL Studio, but it's not very good for people just getting started with production. So I might do that later. But I am not going to be doing Ableton Live because I don't like the look and layout of it. It just doesn't suit me. But that is a really good one, and a lot of people use it. So some of the other ones, Kugo's Reaper, that one's, I think it's $50. But it's got a lot of features that you know are not often found in DAWs that are that cost. And the reason they actually can price it at $50 is because they're asking you, if you're just going to buy it and use it, you could pay $50. But if you actually start to become a well-known artist and you're making a lot of money off your music, we'd really like it if you buy the full version, which is, there's no difference. It's just the fact that you're making money off of it now, so you can actually afford to pay the more money. So that's a very cool thing that their team did, and it makes Reaper really easy to save up for, because it's not like $200 like some of these other ones. Actually, that is something to note. Logic Pro is $200 unless you buy iTunes gift cards. And if you buy iTunes gift cards at a discounted rate, you could usually get it for, I want to say $160. And then FL Studio is normally $200 as well for the producer version, which is, you don't want to get the fruity version unless you're just going to mess around in it. You want to get the producer version for all the features. And then that one's $200, but it does go on sale as well for, I think it's gone on sale for as low as $120. I don't recall. But anyway, so those two are kind of expensive, but Reaper is only $50. And that's all the features and everything unlocked. So it's actually really, really affordable. And it works with VSTs, so you could actually plug in synthesizers really easily. And I tried to use it when I was first getting started, but I just didn't like the interface. I prefer to actually use GarageBand because GarageBand felt more intuitive. Reaper is very powerful, but it's not as intuitive as some of the other ones. So anyway, that's basically, I'm not going to talk about... I guess I'll talk about Reason really quick. Reason is kind of a weird DAW because it's focused on modeling analog layouts. So basically what you have is you have this rack. And it's this rack of basically rack-mounted effects, compressors, synthesizers, and everything like that. So the thing about Reason that's really cool is when you have a synthesizer, you can actually flip around the rack and see where everything is plugged into that and plug it into other things. So you can kind of like reorganize your rack and do really cool splits and wires out. But keep in mind, it does get really confusing really fast. If you like to wire things up and you're used to wiring things up, then you'll really like Reason. But if like wiring stuff seems kind of difficult, and you're not used to wiring things up, then you probably won't like it all that much because you can make something without having to wire things up, but then you could actually mess something up because you place something in the wrong spot and it rewires it automatically and you don't know how to fix it. So you really need to know how to like follow wires and know where everything's going if you want to use it to its full potential and not just to make a few small tracks. But Reason is kind of, it's very unique, but it's also extremely powerful, and it's kind of awkward for a first DAW. My suggestion is you could actually plug in Reaper to FL Studio and Logic. I'm not sure about Ableton Live because I haven't used that, but you can actually get Reason and plug it in as kind of like an effect for Logic and FL Studio, so you can have it inside those, and you don't have to worry like too much about some of the wiring stuff. You could just use a few things from it and not kill yourself because you have to spend the entire time, making sure the wires are correct and they sound like what you want. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, each DAW is just as powerful as the next, and it's just a matter of which one do you want to start working in. Chances are, if you ever do collaborations, you'll actually run into someone that has a different DAW, and you'll have to deal with it because things are going to be different. So you're going to have to be able to catch on to these different types of software pretty quick and kind of learn those. But one of the things that might be worth mentioning is some people talk about sound quality between DAWs. It doesn't matter unless you are doing scientific things. Like you need a pure sine wave with no artifacts or no noise, then it doesn't matter because essentially a lot of people say, oh, FL Studio doesn't have as good as audio quality as like Pro Tools or Logic. Yeah, I actually saw that study, and it was kind of funny because ImageLine, the makers of FL Studio, pointed out how those differences are so minuscule it's not even possible to hear them. It only matters for like at a scientific level, which is kind of funny. So what's the point of the article? So really, all the audio quality is just as good across all of them. Do not be turned off by a particular DAW because someone says, oh, the audio quality is not so good. Trust me, they're all the top ones because a lot of professionals use every single one of these. Now, Reaper is the one kind of odd one out that is not used by a lot of professionals, but that's just because a lot of them prefer to use the bigger name ones. So Reaper is pretty powerful though, for the price especially. So there we go. That's digital audio workstations. You don't, like I said, there's nothing you need to look for by way of features because they pretty much all have it. The only odd ones out are Audacity and Pro Tools, and those are more suited for like only recording, and whereas the other DAWs are all suited for audio work as well as electronic synthesizers, with the exception of Reason being more suited towards synthesizers than most of them, but it does have a lot of audio functionality as well. So anyway, you can't go wrong with any of them. Just kind of look at the one that looks best to you and you kind of want to get started in and you want to learn. If you start in GarageBand, I'm going to tell you right now, moving up from GarageBand to Logic Pro X is going to be really easy. It just has a lot more features, it's so much more powerful, and it just feels awesome moving up to it. So that's my suggestion. If you like GarageBand, just go to Logic Pro X because there's GarageBand is the same, under the hood, it's the same code as Logic. It's just a stripped down version with a lot less features and a lot of things hidden behind the scenes. But it does use the same processing code, I believe. So that's digital audio workstations. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is plugins. This is where things start to go crazy really fast because especially like I said in some of my earlier videos, especially with people being able to download everything for free off the internet, a lot of people just go and download as many plugins as they hear producers use. So like one of the things that I know is a lot of people will watch a video about like in the studio with Martin Garrix, in the studio with Armin van Buuren, in the studio with Avicii, and then what they'll do is they'll go out and look and download all the plugins that they saw in those videos. So they're like, oh, that's a cool plugin, I should try it. And essentially they end up with a whole ton more plugins than they'll ever use. I don't suggest doing this for the sole reason of, like I said, it just kind of fills up your hard drive and you won't use a lot of them. And it's also kind of a distraction because you think, oh, I need a unique compressor sound. So you slap on that other compressor you downloaded instead of actually like trying to get a good unique compressor sound. You just kind of resort to using a different plugin instead of actually thinking, oh, I know this plugin has this particular tone, so I want to use this one for this thing. So that's the reason I don't suggest downloading a whole ton of plugins. My suggestion is do not download a plugin until you feel you need a plugin like that. And like I said, I also don't suggest downloading plugins for free because You could get viruses, as well as the fact that these developers do actually need your support, and it really means a lot when you purchase from them, just because the number of people that pirate things much outweighs the number of people that buy things, so they're losing a lot of money. So if you can buy it, please support the teams and buy it, because that's the only way that they'll come out with cooler and better stuff. So anyway, like for instance, when I was starting with Logic, one of the things I kind of felt was that the synthesizers that were built in were not all that good, which is why the first thing I was looking to buy was a new synthesizer. So I went for Synthmaster, and then, you know, from there on, I think there's a couple other things that I needed to look for. I needed a better limiter, so I got limiter 6, but that one was free. So what I did was I didn't just go around and think, oh, what's the most popular thing, I'll go download it. I actually looked and kind of did some research, found some people who said, yeah, this one's good and this one's good, but if you kind of contrast them, they got 2 different tones. And that's how you kind of look at things. You think, what do I need? What am I looking for? And everything like that. And this is basically every single plugin kind of goes under this blanket, whether it's a synthesizer, a compressor, a reverb, a delay, a vocoder, anything. You basically do not get something new until you feel you actually need something new, because otherwise you're just gonna get distracted by all the software you have and kind of get lost in all that. So that's the one thing I wanted to talk about by way of plugins. Now, by way of recommendations for first plugins to get, I always say synthesizer is the first thing that Logic needs, because ES2, while it's powerful, its tone stinks. I mean, you could get some good stuff off ES2, but at the same time, you can also get some really poor stuff off ES2 for particular sounds. So my suggestion is, first thing you want to get is probably a better synthesizer. From there, the limiters in Logic are not very good for mastering. So I suggest you find a different limiter for mastering, and so you kind of work with that. And then there are some other things, but those are just going to be kind of based on what you need. I found Camel Crusher I really liked, because it had some really good distortion that was really easy to slap on, and it also had a nice compressor on there as well. So that's why I got Camel Crusher. And I think there's a couple other ones I'm starting to try out here, and I'm going to kind of mention later on in some of my videos, and you guys will kind of see me using it, and most of the ones I use are free. The only exception being Synthmaster. So you could actually get those for free, and if you do want to support the creators, though, you can probably donate somewhere on their site. So that's that. Those are pretty much plugins, kind of. I didn't talk as much about plugins as I possibly could have, because, like I said, there's just so many different things, and the biggest issue is, do you need it, or do you just want to download more stuff? And like I talked about in upgrading your studio, if you're upgrading something and you don't really need it, you're just going to get lost in whatever you buy, and you're not going to actually be able to use it to its full potential. So only get a new plugin when you feel something's holding you back and you actually need it. And last but not least, we have samples. Samples is the one thing that I say you can never have enough of, just because essentially when it comes to like kick drums and maybe claps and hats, you'll probably have a couple packs that you'll just go to for every single time you want one of those. But when it comes to like risers and downlifters and background effects, synth shots that you want to kind of put a lot of reverb on and put in the background or something like that, those sort of things, you can't have enough of them. So just whenever you find, for me, I just go scrounging around for free sample packs, and I just kind of look for things there's a couple other free sites. I'm actually going to link here in the video. I'm going to link to, I did a video answering the question, basically, where did I get all my samples? And that's where you can download every single sample pack I use is linked in that video. So I'm going to link that video here. You can check that out and get all the sample packs. Note, if the links are dead, please tell me. Don't dislike the video. Just tell me, and I'll fix them. So, that's where, in regards to my samples. But I have a suggestion by way of, once again, don't just download samples just because you feel, oh, I need more samples to be better. Download samples when you feel you need something. Particularly right now, I need drum fills, and I need downlifters, and I need some sort of background effects as well. So just kind of like, just kind of various things kind of stick in a mix to make it unique. Those are the things that I need. So that's what I would be looking for. You, on the other hand, you might be like, oh, well, I actually need dubstep snares because I don't, in my packs, I do not really have many dubstep snares in the packs. So, so that's what you might be looking for. And if you're looking for there, I suggest go on to loopmasters.com. They have, it's basically this collective website that just kind of acts as a hub where a whole bunch of labels sell their samples. And essentially there's hundreds of labels and thousands of packs. So there's every genre there, every type of sample there. There's samples for hip-hop, there's samples for dubstep, there's samples for cinematic sounds and like movie stuff, and there's samples for music and like the more abstract music styles, the more alternative music styles. They have samples for pretty much everything. My suggestion is, though, don't just go through and look for samples or buy a massive sample pack that has tons of samples in it. My suggestion is, like I said, look for what you need. They have previews for every sample pack. Listen and think, is this what I'm looking for? And then if it is, grab it. Now, there is one sample group pack sort of company that I want to talk about really quick, and that's Vengeance. They are basically the epitome of mainstream when it comes to samples, and I do want to mention one thing about them. While they are extremely popular, I have heard reports that they actually rip some of their samples off of other producers' tracks. So, I don't, like, personally, I don't know if I'm ever going to buy samples from them, just because if you're buying from them and they're stealing it from other people, then you might as well just be pirating it. So it's kind of, I'm not 100% sure what the deal is, but I do remember one artist actually did tweet it out or something like that, that they had noticed that a loop that Vengeance had used was actually cut out right from one of their tracks. So, so that kind of makes me wary to buy from them. But if you do want the epitome of mainstream, that's basically what they are. They're if you get their sample packs, you'll notice there's a lot of effects you'll find that are found in a lot of popular songs. Like I don't know, what's that one song like by W&W? I think it's The Code. That they have like this really weird kind of, sounds like a drum that almost rolls in and then hits right before the drop, and that one is maybe either it's Thunder. I don't remember which song it is. It's either The Code or Thunder, but it's got this weird kind of roll-in drum hit right before the drop, and that is one of the samples from the Vengeance pack. I actually remember running into it a while back when I was kind of looking through it. But so those ones are using a lot of professional tracks. But once again, a lot of people on the internet kind of don't have, like, a lot of good producers on forums and stuff. They don't really like Vengeance all that much because there are, like I said, there are reports of them stealing other people's stuff, as well as the fact that since they're so mainstream, a lot of people are like, oh, they're so mainstream, don't get them. Where I tell you, if you want to be mainstream and that's actually what you're shooting for, then those samples might actually be what you're looking for. So I don't see any reason to, you know, hate on them for being mainstream, although I do see a reason to kind of not like them because they're ripping off other people's stuff. So that's kind of up to you. But yeah, loopmasters.com, no space, no dash or anything, it's just loopmasters.com. They have tons and tons of sample options. There's a couple of packs that I'm looking at, and when or if I get them, I'll do reviews on them, just because I'm only looking at cheap packs that have a specific thing. So I'm kind of, and it's to fill in the gaps of the samples that I don't have already. So I was going to kind of, you know, if I ever get them, I was going to do a review on them, just kind of show you guys, hey guys, if you need fills, I know that the sample packs I talked about before that were free, none of them had fills. So this is what I got, and this is kind of how they sound, and, you know, my thoughts on them. So that's kind of what I might do eventually. But anyway, there's a lot you could do by way of samples, and you could go any direction with those. And just remember, know what you want before you start looking for things to get. Don't just download everything because you know, you feel that it'll make you better. Now that said, like I said, you can never have too many samples. So if you feel like you're shy on effects, you have, like, let's say 50 effect samples, and you're like, well, I have some effects, but they're not really the ones that I want. Feel free to just get more. If you feel like you need more, like I said, you can never have enough of samples. It's just you need to make sure you know what you need beforehand, and you don't just download everything, because then you're going to end up with like 20 sample packs that you never go to because you just got them and then you tried maybe like 2 or 3 samples that are really great out of them, and then you just kind of stop going through them because you have these other ones that are things that are much more for your style, so you're kind of used to these other packs a lot more. So that's my suggestion. You just, you can get as many samples as you want. It's one of the things you can just build up a huge library on. Just don't download everything that you possibly can just because you can. Make sure you know what you're looking for, so that way you can kind of organize your library, and when you get a pack, you know what to be expecting in there, and you know when you want to go to that pack, and you're not just thinking, oh, I'll get this EDM massive pack, and then just go to it every single time I need a sample. You might end up doing that, but only do that if you listen to their previews and you're like, oh, I really like that snare, I really like that kick, I really like that hat, I really like that that downlifter. There are a lot of great things in this pack, so I want to use this pack because there's a lot of things in it that I really want, as opposed to just getting a big pack because it's a big pack and it has so many samples. So that's it, the 3 things: Digital Audio Workstation, and then plugins and samples. Those are 3 things by way of software. Like I said, software is one of the things that you can just go online and download it for free, but I really ask you guys to support the teams, because it means a lot to them, just because there's so many people pirating it and they can't make money off of software as much as they should be able to. In the music field, piracy is very high. So it's, the people at Leonard Digital, their excuse, I say it's an excuse because it's actually an excuse, it's not really a reason. Their excuse for not updating their Silent 1 very often, or adding 64-bit support is, oh, there's too much piracy, we don't have enough money to put enough time into the software. That's probably just an excuse, because realistically, if they really cared about their software, they would be able to update it, and also they'd probably drop the price of it so more people would actually be able to buy it. But that's just my opinion. But anyway, it does affect the team's outlooks and their perspectives and their ability to update and add more features when everything is pirated so much. So please buy the software. It makes such a big difference. I know it's expensive, but if that's the case, then just save up for one thing at a time. Like, save up for Logic first. Like I said, if you buy iTunes gift cards on a discount, you can get it for as low as $160. I know Costco sells iTunes gift cards discounted really often. So that's what I got mine for. I got it for like $160. And then so you just get $200 worth of iTunes gift cards, put it into iTunes, and then just go into the App Store and then get Logic Pro. So that's what I did, and you could probably do that for a lot of other things. There are coupon codes or discounts for pretty much every software out there. Just kind of wait for the right time if you can wait. If you need to get it now and you have the money, feel free to get it. But like I said, please support the teams. It means a lot to them. And that's just my spiel. Partially because I am a software developer myself. I'm not actually part of a team yet, but that's what I'm going to college for. And so I really, I know how they feel about that. And it's made a lot more sense to me as a time, because it takes a lot of time to code software. So it's a big investment. It's not just like they dragged and dropped all the buttons somewhere and then said, make sound here when you push button. It's nowhere near that easy. It's insanely hard to program a software synthesizer or a compressor or something like that. It's not an easy feat. It takes a lot of hard work. Now, there are some people that can do it quickly because they've done it so many times. Like, they've made so many different types of compressors. But for most teams that are just getting started out, it's a very long grind to get a good piece of software. So anyway, hope this video was useful for you guys. I know it wasn't as fun as some of the other videos are going to be, but I did want to talk about software, and mainly kind of sticking to the first thing I said when upgrading your studio. Don't upgrade unless you know why you're upgrading. So that kind of, with the exception of the Digital Audio Workstation, just get a good one. That's going to be one of the ones that you're not going to upgrade. You're pretty much just going to buy one and stick with it, unless you feel like you need an alternative one or something. But then all the plugins and stuff and the samples, those ones are going to be ones that you have to think about what do you want or need, and then kind of go from there, and not so much just download whatever you think every professional uses. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.